In the heart of the bustling city, Claire stood in the middle of her trendy office, eyes locked on the man across the room. It was a chilly morning in October, and the usual hum of chatter felt alive with tension. Tom, her top salesperson, had pushed too many boundaries this time. Each word he spoke felt like boiling water. She knew she had to act. "Tom," Claire called out, her voice steady but cold. As he turned, surprised, the chatter around them faded. There was a weight in the air like the moments before a storm. Employees paused their work, sensing what was about to unfold. They had seen confrontations, but this felt different, heavier. She continued, gesturing him to her office. Claire felt her heart racing. It was the right thing to do, yet being a boss was never easy, especially in public, but the trouble he had caused couldn't wait. Once inside her glass-walled office, Claire closed the door with a soft but firm click. She sat at her desk, looking up at him with determination. "I'm disappointed in your behavior at the last client meeting." Tom, tall and charismatic, crossed his arms, a smirk playing at the corners of his mouth. "Come on, Claire, you know I just wanted to get their attention." The arrogance in his tone made her blood boil. "I get that you want to make an impression, but you crossed the line," she replied, her voice unyielding. "Your actions reflected poorly on our whole team," he asked, surprised. Claire inhaled deeply. This was a defining moment. "You know what?" Her voice rang out clear, echoing in the small room. The relief mixed with fear washed over her. She had thought this through a million times, but actually saying it made it real. "Fine, I'll just take my talent somewhere else then," Tom barked back, his bravado cracking for just a moment. But then he collected himself, a sneer gracing his lips again. And with that, he turned on his heel and strode out, the door slamming behind him. The moment was surreal. The noise of the office came rushing back as if someone had flipped a switch. Claire remained sitting, heart thudding in her chest. Had she really fired him? There was a sense of liberation mixed with uncertainty. She had stood her ground. But would this haunt her later? As the workday moved on, Claire felt the eyes of her team on her. Whispers fluttered in the air, gossip traveling faster than she could handle. Was she too harsh? Did she make a mistake? Hours passed, and as the sun dipped beneath the horizon, Claire gathered her things to leave the office. The gray shadows danced along the walls, matching her tangled thoughts. She stepped outside, the brisk air biting at her skin. In that moment, she felt free, but the weight of her decision lingered. The following day was a Saturday. The weekend was supposed to be a respite, but it was just more time for her mind to spiral into worry. Saturday morning, she decided to take a stroll downtown, wanting to clear her head. The city was alive, filled with people buzzing about, but every face seemed to remind her of what had happened. As she walked past coffee shops and bookstores, something caught her eye. There, golden letters gleaming under the morning sun, was a new office building. On the side of the building, bold and bright, was Tom's name. Her stomach dropped. This couldn't be. She squinted, willing herself to look away. But it was real. Tom had landed on his feet quickly. The logo of his new company made her sick. After all that, he was already moving on. Claire turned the corner, her heart racing. How could he do this, building a new future while she grappled with the fallout of the past? Images of their brainstorming sessions, the laughter shared over lunch, even the late nights preparing presentations flashed through her mind. He was no longer just a coworker, he was a competitor now. As days went by, she tried to suppress her feelings, throwing herself into work. Urgent emails, team meetings, deadlines, they were her distraction. But every time she glanced at social media, there was Tom. Known for his charm, he was already making headlines, talking about success with that same smile that once felt warm to her. One day, after a particularly challenging board meeting, Claire found herself alone in her office, feeling the weight of the world on her shoulders. Just as she took a breath, her phone buzzed. A notification popped up, a tag from Tom's new company announcing their grand opening. There he was, standing proudly in front of the building with clients all around him, their smiles bright against the backdrop of the new structure. Suddenly, the noise of her office faded. The feeling of defeat washed over her. It slapped harder than any confrontation could. Was this what she had sacrificed for? Doubts crept in, gnawing at her confidence. She thought of the conversation, the righteous moment where she felt so strong. Days turned into weeks, and while Claire tried to put on a brave face, the fear of failure haunted her. But something deep inside her thrummed with resolve. She couldn't waste time wondering if she had made the right choice. She had to confront the situation, to move forward instead of waiting for it to pass her by. One evening, she joined her colleagues for drinks at a nearby bar. The chatter was lively, laughter blending with the clinking of glasses, but Claire was lost in thought. When her phone buzzed again, she pulled it out, and to her shock, it was a message from Tom. "Hey Claire," it read, "I heard you're going to the event next week. Would love to catch up." Could she really face him? The anger, the hurt, did she want to dissolve those feels or let them fester? What would it mean to talk to him now? Taking a deep breath, Claire decided to accept the invitation. It was time to reclaim her narrative instead of letting it be written by someone else. The evening of the event arrived, the venue bustling with excitement. As she entered, a familiar face caught her eye. There was Tom, surrounded by new colleagues, their laughter loud and carefree. Once they made eye contact, Tom's expression shifted. Gone was the arrogance and bravado, replaced by something softer, almost vulnerable. He hesitated, then walked over to her. "Hey Claire," she nodded, struggling to find her words. "I mean, I wasn't sure if I should, but look, I'm sorry about how things ended," he cut in, sincerity coloring his tone. "I should have respected your authority." For a moment, Claire didn't know how to reply. To hear him admit his missteps was unexpected. The emotion in his voice pulled at her heart. She thought about the moments they shared and how his actions had affected them both. "Thank you for saying that," she finally managed. "I'll admit," Tom said, rubbing the back of his neck, "I thought you had made a huge mistake, but it felt like a wake-up call." Claire could feel her walls beginning to crumble. They stood there, the tension that once filled the air slowly dissipating, replaced by a shared understanding. She felt lighter, the burden of resentment slipping away. Perhaps this conversation was the closure they both needed. When the event wrapped up, they parted ways. The streetlights twinkled like stars above them, illuminating the path ahead. Claire felt a sense of relief wash over her. She had faced one of her biggest fears and emerged stronger from it. Days turned into weeks, and Claire found herself watching Tom from a distance, no longer feeling bitter. His company was growing fast, and that was okay. She realized that she could celebrate his success without it feeling like a betrayal. She was on her own path, still navigating her own journey, learning and growing. In a world where competition ran rampant, she discovered that letting go did not mean weakness, it was liberating. Every struggle had led her to this moment, to a place of strength and understanding. She learned to trust herself, knowing she was capable of weathering any storm. Through the ups and downs, Claire transformed from fear into resilience. Watching Tom's name on the building wasn't a reflection of her failure, but a reminder of her journey. Life would keep throwing challenges her way, but she knew now that she could rise above them, stronger than before. The room fell silent as Claire's words sliced through the chaos of the bustling office. The bold declaration echoed against the sleek glass walls like thunder. Eyes turned towards them, employees frozen in their tasks, whispering behind their hands. Tom's face shifted from surprise to disbelief, and then to a simmering anger that painted his features with shades of red. In public, his voice rose, a mix of indignation and humiliation. Claire could feel her heart pounding in her chest, each thump echoing a doubt she couldn't afford, but she held her ground, refusing to let fear weaken her resolve. "Your behavior at the meeting last week was unacceptable," Claire replied, her voice steady. Around them, the energy of the room thickened. It wasn't just a confrontation, it felt like an eruption. Employees leaned in, caught between curiosity and concern. Claire glanced at her assistant, who stared wide-eyed, a hand clasped over her mouth. "But Claire," Tom pleaded, desperation creeping into his tone, "you know I bring in the numbers." A pit formed in Claire's gut, but she pushed it down. "It's not a mistake." She stood taller, feeling the weight of all her choices, all her struggles as a leader flooding her mind. She had fought too hard to be undermined. Tom stepped closer, his brow knit in frustration. "You'll regret this, Claire." With that, he turned and stormed out, leaving a charged silence in his wake. Claire exhaled slowly, the moment stretching out like a tightrope. The air felt thick with tension and uncertainty. Had she done the right thing? Anger and doubt battled inside her. The office buzz resumed, but it felt different now, charged with whispers and glances, like everyone was waiting for a lightning bolt to strike again. As the day melted into evening, Claire sat in her office, the flickering light above casting shadows that danced along the walls. Her mind raced, replaying the exchange. She had stood up for herself, but at what cost? The next morning, she wrapped herself in a scarf and stepped onto the street, the crisp autumn air biting at her cheeks. The world hummed around her, but her thoughts were clouded. She needed to clear her mind to make sense of the whirlwind that was now her life. Wandering through the city, Claire found herself on a familiar street. It was bustling with activity, and her eyes glazed over all the shops and cafes she passed, lost in thought. Just as she turned a corner, something caught her attention. There it was, a gleaming new office building, shining under the sunlight like it was calling her name. But when she looked closer, her breath hitched in her throat. Her heart raced, a flood of emotion crashing over her. It felt like being thrown into icy water. Claire froze, the world around her blurring into the background. This was too much. How could he have risen so fast? Just yesterday, she had fired him, and now he was already building an empire. It felt like a slap in the face. Anger bubbled within her, a mix of disbelief and jealousy. She turned on her heel, the sting of betrayal still fresh. Back at the office, Claire tried to focus, but every time she glanced at her phone, she could see Tom's name, now a company name, staring back at her in her mind. She worked harder, flipping through emails and attending meetings, but the specter of Tom hung over her like a shadow. Days rolled by, and she continued to see news about Tom's new venture. His charming smile graced the front pages of industry magazines, and his name buzzed on everyone's lips. Meanwhile, Claire felt like her hard-fought world was slowly crumbling. Had she really been so naive to think she could take him down? One Thursday night, Claire found herself at a networking event, her nerves buzzing like electricity. She sipped her drink, trying to blend into the crowd, yet her mind was elsewhere. That's when she spotted him. Tom stood across the room, surrounded by potential clients, his laughter echoing like music. For a moment, time stood still. Their eyes caught, and an intense tension crackled between them, thick enough to cut. Claire felt a mix of fear and defiance. This wasn't just a former coworker, it was a challenge to her own decisions. For the first time, she felt small, wondering if she had made a mistake by firing him. That night, she left early, the weight of her doubts dragging behind her like a dark cloud. As the days drifted into weeks, Claire found herself slipping into a funk. She buried herself in work revamping strategies, meeting clients, pushing her team harder than ever. But under the surface, the insecurities were boiling. Tom's firm continued to rise, and Claire was anxious at every turn, convinced that she could feel his shadow looming over her achievements. Her assistant, Sarah, stood by, offering support. "You're doing great stuff, Claire. You just need to trust yourself," she said one afternoon, attempting to lift Claire's spirits. But Claire smiled weakly, the doubt still gnawing at her. It was hard to feel strong when every success was tinged with the bitterness of Tom's quick rise. The psychological impact of comparing herself to him weighed her down. "I just feel." On another chilly evening, as she readied for bed, her phone buzzed with a notification, a message. It was Tom, surprising her. "Hey, Claire. Saw your work at the conference last week. Impressive stuff." Her heart raced, every fiber of her being screamed to discard it, to run away from the possibility. But something deep inside pushed her to consider it. Maybe this was an opportunity, maybe she could turn the tide. After wrestling with her decision, she decided to accept his invitation. They agreed to meet over coffee the following Wednesday at a cafe halfway between their offices. When the day finally arrived, Claire felt both terrified and exhilarated. She chose a navy blue dress that made her feel powerful. As she walked through the cafe's door, the warm scent of coffee enveloped her and her pulse quickened. She spotted Tom seated by the window, and for a moment she hesitated, but she steeled herself and approached the table. "Tom," she greeted. He looked up, a soft smile breaking across his face, a smile she remembered all too well. "Claire." They exchanged pleasantries over steaming mugs, the conversation flowing initially like easy currents. But as they began discussing their businesses, a tension lingered beneath the surface. Claire felt the competitive edge nudging at her, clouding every word. "I hear you're doing great things with your team," Tom remarked, a hint of sincerity in his voice. "Thanks, I'm trying," she replied, nervous energy bubbling up. There was a pause, and suddenly, all too quickly, the clouds parted for a brief moment, their eyes meeting, revealing a vulnerability usually tucked away. "You know, firing me was hard for both of us," Tom said, his voice low. Claire felt her heart flutter. "I know it wasn't easy, but I had to protect my position." Tom nodded, understanding passing between them. It was a moment of honesty, a crack in their competitive facades. The air shifted. They were not just rivals, but shared souls navigating the tumultuous sea of their careers. As they conversed deeper, Claire saw the burden of his ambition etched on his face, feeling the weight of the decisions they both had to make. "This industry can be ruthless, and sometimes it takes drastic measures to get where we need to be," Tom explained, his gaze intense. Claire took a breath, feeling a connection that was almost eerie. With the conversation opening doors, Tom proposed something unexpected. "What if we collaborated on a project, two companies merging ideas?" Claire sat back, surprised. Could they really work together? It felt improbable, filled with risks yet high rewards danced on the fringes of possibility. "Why not? Think about it. Combined, we could build something bigger than ourselves," he said, enthusiasm lighting up his expression. As they discussed ideas, the weight of rivalry began slipping away, replaced with a sense of shared purpose. Vision and ambition fused in the air, illuminating the table like a beacon of hope. By the time they finished, Claire felt different. The bitterness that had settled within her started to fade, replaced by a newfound respect, not just for Tom, but for herself. The drive to survive had morphed into the drive to thrive. When they parted ways that day, Claire felt lighter, the burden of past decisions lifting from her shoulders. She learned that growth came from recognizing her own worth and understanding that life was not a zero-sum game. Weeks passed, and each day brought them closer to building something remarkable. Claire and Tom began collaborating in ways that blended their strengths. Ideas flowed, and together they sparked creativity, breathing life into a project that once seemed impossible. As they stood together at the launch event of their new venture, Claire felt a swell of pride. They faced the crowd, united not just as competitors, but as equals. Tom turned to her, a smile breaking across his face. "No, but I wouldn't want to be anywhere else," she replied, a warm glow filling her heart. The applause roared around them, invigorating and alive, and for the first time, Claire saw not just Tom as an individual, but the potential boundless ahead of them. What had begun in conflict transformed into something beautiful, proving that even amidst the toughest storms, new paths could emerge. As Claire looked out at the crowd, she spotted the gleaming office building in the distance, the name Mitchell standing tall. It no longer felt like a reminder of defeat, it was a symbol of mutual growth. In that moment, Claire understood it wasn't about winning or losing, it was about rising together. The office was buzzing with the frenetic energy of deadline week, a whirlwind of activity and pressure. Claire stood at the front of the room, her heart pounding in her chest, knowing she was about to make a life-altering decision. Tom, her top salesperson, was at the edge of a simmering storm, just moments away from unleashing his latest controversy. The clients had complained again, and Claire knew enough was enough. "Tom," she called out, her voice steady yet taut, slicing through the din of chatter. When he turned to face her, a smirk already forming on his lips, the air shifted. He strutted over, confidence radiating from him like a bright light. "What's up, boss?" His tone dripped with arrogance, as if he believed he was above the rules. Claire felt her pulse quicken, the tension palpable. No, she could feel eyes on them, colleagues hovering just out of earshot, leaning in to catch a whiff of the drama. "I've received multiple complaints about your behavior in client meetings." A flicker of irritation crossed his face, but it was gone in a flash. "I was just trying to get the client excited, you know," Claire echoed, her voice rising. The murmurs in the room grew louder, her colleagues on the edge of their seats. "You mean crossing them? This isn't about impressing people." Tom scoffed, crossing his arms defensively. "So what?" His tone dripped with disbelief and indignation. Claire opened her mouth, but the words came faster than she could process them. The confession rolled off her tongue like a rock tumbling down a hill. The room erupted. Shock painted Tom's features, his smirk fading into anger. "In front of everyone? No joke, Tom. I can't keep you on after this." He glared, the fury in his eyes threatening to spill over. "You'll regret this, Claire." With that, he turned on his heel and stormed out of the office, the door slamming shut behind him. Silence hung in the air, a thick blanket of uncertainty. The buzz of whispers filled the room, mixed with disbelief and concern. Claire stood there, processing what had just happened, her heart racing. Had she really done that? She sunk into her chair, burying her face in her hands. Doubt clawed at her. Was this the right decision? Questions swirled in her mind as the clock ticked relentlessly, each second echoing with uncertainty. That evening, Claire found herself wandering the streets, trying to escape the noise in her head. The city was alive, lights twinkling against the darkening sky, but all she felt was weight, a heavy burden pressing down on her. She thought about Tom and the chaos he had brought into her life. But now she felt vulnerable, exposed. A couple of days later, she took a long route to work, hoping to clear her mind. As she turned onto a familiar street, something made her halt in her tracks. There, shining against the autumn sun, was a brand new office building. The sleek glass facade reflected the sky, but there in bold lettering was a name that shook her to her core. Her breath caught in her throat. The realization hit her like a cold wave. Tom had already launched a new company just days after she had fired him. What was supposed to be a moment of pride for her suddenly became a heavy weight in her chest. The familiar feelings of anger and jealousy surged back, sharper than ever. Claire stood frozen, disbelief washing over her. How had he done this so quickly? How could he transform what had just unfolded into a success? Doubt crawled into her mind. Maybe he hadn't needed her at all. Everything seemed to spiral, and all she could do was turn away. But as days rolled into weeks, Tom's new venture continued to grow. The headlines blared with news about Mitchell Group, showcasing impressive clients and grand projects. Claire couldn't escape it. Every time she checked her social media, there he was, smiling, charismatic, thriving. At the office, Claire buried herself deeper into her work, caught in a frenzied cycle of meetings and deadlines. She pushed her team hard, expecting them to match her intensity, trying desperately to ignore the gnawing envy eating away at her confidence. Sarah, her assistant, asked one day while they were reviewing a presentation. Concern echoed in her voice, and Claire quickly masked her emotions with a smile. "Of course, just busy," she replied, but inside she felt anything but busy. She felt lost, questioning herself at every turn. One night, after a particularly draining day, she found herself scrolling through Tom's social media. He was charming as always, sharing success after success, and it only deepened her resolve to do better. Each post pricked at her confidence, driving home the idea that maybe firing him was a mistake. Or was it? Then one Friday afternoon, a message pinged on her phone. It was Tom, the last person she expected to hear from. "Hey Claire, I hope you're doing well. Didn't think I'd hear from you again." Anxiety flooded through her. Was he being sincere, or was this just another attempt to gloat over his success? She stared at the message, biting her lip. After a few moments that felt like an eternity, she decided to reply. Sure. They agreed to meet at a cafe a few blocks from her office. They arrived quickly, and Claire felt a mix of dread and anticipation. As she stepped into the cafe, the warmth wrapped around her, but her heart raced at the thought of seeing him again. Tom was already there, sitting at a table with a small smile that felt both inviting and intimidating. "Claire, great to see you again," he said, rising to greet her. "Hey," she replied, trying to keep her voice steady. As they settled into their seats, a tension filled the space between them, but they both tried to play it cool. As they exchanged small talk, Claire couldn't help but dissect every word, every glance. She saw the pride in his eyes, the confidence that dripped from his voice. "Things are good," he said nonchalantly, as if that explained the whirlwind of success he'd embraced. "Yeah, I noticed," Claire replied, somewhat defensively. There was an undercurrent in her tone, a pull of envy she couldn't quite mask. Tom shrugged. "It's been a lot of hard work." He leaned in, sincerity lacing his words. "But honestly, I've learned so much from everything from us." Claire's breath caught. Was he actually admitting that her firing him had sparked this success? "Absolutely," he nodded. "I knew I had to step up my game." For a moment, their earlier confrontation faded and there was a flicker of understanding. They both had faced their own trials, and perhaps she had underestimated the impact of their rivalry. Maybe we both needed that push, Claire offered, a small grin breaking through her tension. Their conversation began to flow more easily, barriers dissolving as they shared their paths since their last encounter. They discussed struggles, victories, and even failures, and for the first time, Claire felt something shift. They spoke about the challenges of leadership, the loneliness that seemed to shadow their roles, and the weight of expectations. Claire shared her experiences of trying to lead a team through failures, and Tom opened up about the fears of starting something new. There's this massive pressure to succeed, he admitted, his voice low, but that pressure also ignites a fire within me. Claire recognized the truth in those words. She had felt that pressure, the desire to rise above uncertainty. It was a shared understanding, a bridge rebuilt between them. As their meeting wrapped up, Claire felt a surge of exhilaration, the kind that comes with a new beginning. They shook hands, but this time it didn't feel like a farewell, it felt like a promise of cooperation. Tom looked at her, the core of their competitive dynamic shifting ever so slightly. "Do you think we could work together on something? There's potential there," he suggested cautiously. "Maybe," Claire replied, surprised at how genuinely intrigued she felt. Teaming up could be powerful. She could finally focus on her strengths while learning from his experiences. The idea sparked a flame within her, igniting interest. As weeks rolled by, Claire felt her perspective shift. Instead of wanting to compete against Tom, she realized they could elevate each other. Their conversations deepened over coffee, and soon they started collaborating on small projects. Their different styles complemented each other's strengths, and they found themselves brainstorming together like two pieces fitting into a puzzle. One fateful evening, as they sat in a co-working space, electricity filled the air around them. They were deep into a project that had them both excited, passionate. Claire felt a growing sense of camaraderie, a refreshing change from her previous doubts. Tom asked, a playful grin on his face. "Yeah," Claire laughed, the warmth of connection spreading through her. "But look at us now." As they prepared to present their collaborative project to the board the next week, Claire felt a surge of confidence. The doubt that had plagued her was waning. She was fueled by excitement rather than fear. When the presentation day arrived, Claire couldn't help but feel a rush of adrenaline. Standing in front of her team, she looked over at Tom, who nodded back, his confidence bolstering hers. Together, they presented a dynamic duo, each contributing ideas and insights, weaving their thoughts into a beautiful tapestry of creativity and vision. When they finished, applause erupted. The board expressed excitement, a spark igniting in their eyes, reflective of the hard work and passion Claire and Tom brought forth. As they left the meeting room, exhilaration filled the air. Claire breathed, a smile stretching across her face. "Yeah, we did," Tom replied, his eyes bright. In the months following, they continued to grow stronger, both as a team and as individuals. Claire's confidence blossomed, and she came into her own as a leader, establishing a reputation that was all her own. She reflected on the day she had fired Tom, realizing it not only reshaped his path but her life as well. It taught her to be bold, to make tough choices when needed. One sunny afternoon, Claire found herself walking past that imposing office building again, its shiny glass exterior gleaming in the afternoon light. But today felt different. Instead of feeling envious or regretful, she felt proud. Tom's name still adorned the building, but now it signified something else, their journey both individually and together. The collaboration transformed what had once been a rivalry into mutual respect. As Claire turned the corner, she couldn't help but smile. She felt lighter, fueled by success, knowing she had built her path alongside someone who had once felt like a foe. The future stretched out before her, bright and sprawling, filled with opportunities to explore and conquer. Together, they had proven that sometimes the greatest victories are born from the ashes of conflict, and collaboration often leads to the highest peaks. Together, they would rise higher than they ever imagined. The conference room was buzzing with energy, filled with eager eyes and anxious hearts. Staff members shifted in their seats, waiting for Claire to unveil the new project. But just outside the door, Tom was pacing, his frustration boiling over it. He had gone too far this time, and everyone in the office knew it. When Claire finally stepped inside, the room fell silent. The tension built in the air, as heavy as a storm cloud. "Thank you all for coming. Today we're discussing our biggest client." Before she could finish, Tom burst in, interrupting as if announcing a grand arrival. He waved a piece of paper, swaggering as if he owned the place. "Tom, not now," Claire said, her voice steady but firm. She could feel the collective eyes of her team shifting, sensing the brewing storm. Tom retorted, his frustration spilling into arrogance. Claire took a deep breath, feeling irritation flare. The office had already discussed Tom's behavior repeatedly, a toxic mix of charisma and narcissism. "This is inappropriate. We're in a meeting." Tom cut her off again. "Inappropriate. I'm trying to drive this company forward." The tension snapped. Claire faced the team, feeling their anxious gazes. They shuffled out, leaving behind an electrified silence. "Tom, we need to talk," she said, closing the door sharply behind the last employee. He stood with arms crossed, his expression a mixture of disbelief and defiance. "Talk about what, Claire?" Claire's voice rose, fueled by frustration. "You're making a mistake," Tom shot back, the arrogance bleeding into desperation. But Claire knew the truth. "No, I'm not. Get your things." The words hung in the air like a thunderclap. His eyes widened in shock. In front of everyone, Claire nodded, her resolve hardening. With that, she opened the door. Tom's face shifted from disbelief to a furious scowl. He spat before storming out, the echo of his footsteps ringing in her ears. As Claire watched him leave, a mix of relief and dread washed over her. Had she made the right decision? She glanced around the conference room as employees trickled back in, their expressions revealing a mix of concern and shock. Her assistant Sarah whispered, clearly unsettled. Claire shook her head, feeling vulnerable. But her heart raced with doubts flooding her thoughts. Days passed, and though the office was calmer without the chaos that Tom had brought, Claire couldn't shake the weight of her decision. Was there a chance she'd made a mistake? One early evening, as she grabbed her things and stepped outside, the chill in the air hit her like a blast. She needed to clear her head to escape the doubts that clung to her like shadows. Walking through the city, she wandered the streets, lost in thought. Each corner held memories of past meetings, all marked by Tom's relentless bravado. And then she saw it. Gleaming in the afternoon sun was a brand new office building. Her steps faltered as she drew closer. A wave of disbelief washed over her. This couldn't be happening. Just days after firing him, Tom had already launched his own company. Her stomach dropped, and all the uncertainty she had pushed aside rushed back. What had she done? As she turned away, the city blurred into a haze. Claire could feel the fear creeping in. She had made a powerful enemy, one who had just emerged from the ashes. The following weeks felt like an uphill climb. Tom's company was everywhere. Headlines screamed about his rapid ascension, his charisma pulling in clients at breakneck speed. Claire couldn't escape his name, it haunted her. Sarah finally asked one afternoon, seeing the strain etched on Claire's face. "I'm fine," Claire replied more sharply than intended, but inside she was anything but fine. The insecurity rattled within, making her question every decision she had made. Had she underestimated Tom? As the days dragged on, their paths seemed to intertwine in unexpected ways. Claire loathed having to attend networking events where Tom was also present, his laughter echoing through the air while she feigned composure. There was one event that stood out, with high-profile clients eager to connect with both Tom and Claire. As she entered the venue, every bit of confidence wavered. The buzz of voices surrounded her, but a chill ran down her spine when she spotted him laughing animatedly across the room. She took a deep breath, convincing herself that she was there for a reason. Walking past him felt like a tightrope walk over a canyon, each step heavy with history. Their eyes met, a brief moment of recognition sparking between them. But then he turned back to his group, dismissing her without a second glance. The sting left her feeling hollow, but she pressed on, engaging in discussions, trying to ignore the growing resentment inside. Days forged into weeks, and Claire's dilemma deepened. Tom's presence felt inescapable, dominating headlines while she fought to keep her own company afloat. Each call, each email felt more burdensome, and trust seemed elusive. One night she found herself unable to sleep, the weight of her decisions keeping her awake. As thoughts spiraled, a glimmer of a realization flickered. She had fired Tom to regain control over her life, but that control was slipping through her fingers with every passing moment. The following day, she received a notification, a message from Tom. Her heart raced, torn between curiosity and dread. "Hey Claire, hope you're doing well. I know our last interaction wasn't the best, but I would love to catch up." Claire stared at her phone, emotions crashing like waves against the shore. Was he genuine or simply extending an olive branch to gloat? After a night of deliberation, she decided to meet him, curiosity overriding her instincts. They agreed to a coffee date, a small step into the unknown, a leap of faith she wasn't sure she was ready to take. When the day arrived, Claire felt a tangle of nerves as she prepared. She chose a blouse that made her feel confident, aiming for a polished look that could stand up to whatever Tom might throw at her. As she entered the cafe, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee enveloped her. Tom was seated at a table, scanning the bustling environment. As he noticed her, his face lit up with a genuine smile, shocking her. "Claire, it's good to see you," he said, standing to greet her. Gone was the superior bravado, replaced by an earnestness she hadn't expected. "Hi, Tom," she replied, cautiously taking her seat. They exchanged small talk initially, but Claire felt the tension loosen as they delved into deeper conversations about the industry. Tom spoke candidly about his journey since launching his firm, the fears, the sacrifices. "I realized I needed to reinvent myself," he shared, vulnerability etched in his voice. "Losing my position forced me to confront my weaknesses." Claire found herself drawn in, each word resonating with her own struggles. "I know what you mean. It's been tough managing everything since." Their conversation flowed more naturally, the rivalry morphing into a shared understanding. They discussed industry trends and the pressure of leadership, the unique challenges that stripped away ego and left raw honesty behind. "But you're doing incredible work, Claire," Tom said earnestly. "I always respected your drive." The weight of his acknowledgement flooded her with warmth, melting some of the resentment that clung stubbornly to her heart. "Thanks, Tom." As the afternoon wore on, Claire and Tom exchanged ideas about potential collaborations, something she would have scoffed at just weeks. But the thought excited her. Maybe there was strength in combining their approaches. When they finally parted ways, it felt different. There was no bitterness, no anger, only the promise of something new. In the following weeks, they worked together on small projects, the combined efforts sparking creativity neither had expected. Claire began to see the value in collaboration, gaining insights from Tom that opened her eyes to different possibilities. The breakthrough moment came during a brainstorming session, filled with passion and excitement. She glanced up to see Tom's animated expression and felt something shift inside her, a blend of admiration and respect. "You know, we make a pretty good team," Tom said, grinning. "We do," Claire admitted, surprised at how easily they had forged a new partnership amid the ashes of their rivalry. As they prepared for a major presentation to a high-profile client, Claire felt a newfound assurance. The once familiar doubts of her capabilities evaporated as she worked alongside Tom, drawing strength from their evolving bond. On the day of the presentation, the audience's energy buzzed as they delivered their combined pitch. Claire and Tom stood side by side, two former rivals, now unified by a shared vision. Afterwards, they received rave reviews. The client expressed admiration for their creativity, and for the first time in ages, Claire felt a genuine sense of accomplishment. Once the meeting wrapped up, Claire felt the adrenaline surge through her. They exchanged high fives, laughter spilling into the room like sunshine after a storm. Tom turned to her, eyes twinkling. Claire laughed, thrilled. As their partnership continued to grow, Claire realized the impact of her decision to fire Tom that day in the conference room. Initially out of fear and frustration, it had led to a path of self-discovery. She had reclaimed her power and chosen to transform an adversarial environment into one of partnership. Weeks passed, and one sunny afternoon, Claire found herself walking through the city again. As she approached the shiny office building she had once dreaded, she felt an unfamiliar lightness. It didn't loom over her like a specter anymore. It simply stood there, a testament to growth. She looked at Mitchell Group proudly etched on the facade and realized this was no longer just a symbol of Tom's success. It was an emblem of resilience, reminding her that sometimes, out of conflict could rise creativity. Claire smiled, knowing that she had found her footing on a path filled with promise and hope. Today, she didn't feel just like Claire. She felt like the leader she was meant to be. And standing beside Tom, they would continue to reshape their destinies together. The sun streamed through the tall office windows, casting a golden glow on the bustling sales floor. Claire stood at the front of the room, the hum of chatter fading as she prepared to deliver what felt like an impossible message. Just outside the door, Tom was arguing with a client, his voice rising above the usual noise. "Tom's at it again," someone whispered in the back. Claire felt her heart race. This wasn't just another day at the office, it was a showdown. Moments later, Tom stormed in, his confident stride instantly drawing attention. With his slick hair and sharp suit, he was the epitome of charisma, but Claire knew better. Underneath the charm lay an arrogance that had turned toxic. "Claire," he proclaimed, puffing his chest out like a peacock. "Not now, Tom," Claire said, her voice steady but her nerves fraying. The office was alive with murmurs as the team sensed the brewing storm. "Oh, come on," Tom countered, annoyance dripping from each word. Claire clenched her fists, frustration bubbling beneath her calm. "This isn't a game, you're affecting the whole team." The room fell silent, all eyes on them, curiosity weaving through the ranks like a whispered secret. Tom rolled his eyes but followed her to the small conference room. Claire closed the door behind them, the finality of the click pressing down like a weight. "Your behavior is becoming intolerable, Tom." He crossed his arms, exuding defiance. "Warned, you think you can just hold me down because you're scared of my success." "Success?" Claire shot back, feeling her heart pound. She had been managing this conflict for months, and it was time to put her foot down. "You'll regret this decision, Claire." "I have connections and skills that you'll miss," he sneered. Claire inhaled deeply, her jaw set tight. "I'm firing you." Tom's expression morphed from anger to shock, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. "In public, yes, I am." The words hung in the air, heavy and charged. The door swung open and Tom stormed out, fury boiling over. He shouted before disappearing down the hall, leaving a stunned silence in his wake. Claire returned to her desk, heart racing. As she composed herself, Sarah, her assistant, peeked into the room, wide-eyed. "I had to do it," Claire said, though doubt began to creep in. Had she made a mistake? Hours passed and the office buzzed with mixed reactions. Some praised her for finally standing up to Tom, while others seemed uneasy. Claire tried to concentrate, but each time she glimpsed the door, a knot of anxiety tightened in her stomach. The next day, Claire took a long route to work, needing to clear her mind. The crisp, cool air felt refreshing, almost healing. But when she turned a corner, everything changed. There, towering above the street, was a brand new office building, gleaming in the morning light. Her heart dropped as she approached, her eyes widened in disbelief. Frozen in place, Claire could scarcely breathe. Just days after firing him, he had already launched his own company. It felt like a punch in the gut. Rage mixed with disbelief as she turned away, a whirlwind of emotions sending her spiraling. All she could think was how she had given him the push he needed, a catalyst for success. Had she underestimated him? Had her decision been a mistake? Days rolled into weeks, and Tom's name seemed to echo around every corner. Headlines celebrated his rapid rise in the industry, and Claire felt the crushing weight of comparison settle on her shoulders. How could she focus on her work, knowing he was out there, thriving while she struggled to keep her company afloat? Sarah asked one afternoon, noticing Claire's distracted demeanor. "I'm fine," Claire snapped, but her tone had a sharpness that even surprised her. In her heart, she felt like she was losing something precious, her confidence, her sense of leadership. Each day was a battle against feelings of inadequacy, and Tom's success cut deeper than she wanted to admit. Then came the evening event that changed everything. Claire arrived at the venue, the air crackling with excitement. People mingled beneath shimmering chandeliers, discussing deals and dreams. But her heart sank when she spotted Tom across the room, holding court with several influential clients, his laughter infectious. With each interaction, it felt as though he was mocking her, flaunting his success like a trophy. Claire felt her throat tighten as she forced a smile, drifting from group to group, engaging in conversations while watching him from a distance. The tension in her chest felt like a vice. As the night wore on, Claire stood at the bar, ordering a drink when she felt a presence behind her. It was Tom, his charming smile too wide, too confident. "Claire." "Fancy seeing you here," he said, leaning casually against the counter. "Tom," she replied, keeping her voice neutral. "You know, it's not too late to come work with me," he offered, a glimmer of mischief in his eyes. "Pass," she shot back, surprise mingling with annoyance. Who did he think he was? He chuckled, tilting his head. "I'm serious. We could do some amazing things together." Claire's tone dripped with sarcasm. Tom's grin faded slightly, but he recovered. With that, he returned to his group, leaving Claire fuming, her heart pounding with frustration and confusion. Was he really that arrogant, or was there a part of him that wanted to extend an olive branch? It felt twisted and unfair that her emotions were so tangled up in this chaotic rivalry. Days turned into weeks, and Tom's firm continued to gain traction, making headlines and striking big deals. Meanwhile, Claire grappled with her own demons, questioning her choices and the direction of her company. One particularly rough Friday night, Claire sat alone in her office, staring at the computer screen. The lines of her latest report blurred together, an array of unreadable figures. Just then, a notification popped up, a message from Tom. "Hey Claire, I was thinking we should grab coffee sometime." Her heart raced. Was he genuine, or was this just another way for him to brag? Claire hesitated, biting her lip. After chewing it over for a full night, she finally replied, "Sure." They agreed to meet at a little cafe downtown. As the day approached, anxiety gnawed at her. What would she say? How could she sit across from him after everything that had happened? When Claire walked into the cafe, the aroma of coffee wrapped around her like a familiar embrace. She spotted Tom sitting at a table, looking surprisingly relaxed. There was something reassuring about his smile that caught her off guard. "Hey," he greeted, standing to shake her hand. "Hi, Tom," she replied cautiously, settling into her seat. Their initial conversation was light, but as they eased into deeper topics, Claire felt the familiarity of their previous connection return. Tom asked, genuine curiosity etched on his face. "It's been challenging, to say the least," Claire admitted. Tom nodded, his expression shifting to empathy. "I can understand that." Claire couldn't help but admire his honesty. "It's all about resilience," he replied. Their discussion flowed easily, unearthing shared experiences and insights that they had both encountered since their time working together. Claire began to see Tom in a different light, not just as a rival, but as a fellow traveler in this chaotic world of business. "I've missed collaborating with you," Tom admitted, his candor refreshing. That comment struck her, melting the walls they had built around their rivalry. Maybe this wasn't just about competition, maybe they could benefit from each other after all. As they wrapped up their meeting, Tom hesitated, biting his lip. "What if we teamed up on something?" Claire paused, her heart racing at the thought. "Teamed up? Why not? We could create something amazing together." "Imagine the potential," he urged, sincerity lighting up his eyes. A smile crept onto Claire's face as she considered the possibility. The idea of a partnership held a certain thrill. Okay. Over the following weeks, they collaborated on a joint project, and Claire found herself energized. Together, they combined their strengths, weaving a tapestry of ideas that sparked creativity and enthusiasm. During their brainstorming sessions, Claire saw a new side of Tom, one filled with vulnerability and vision. They shared late nights, diving deep into strategies and plans, both pushing each other to soar higher. Then one day, as they prepared for a big pitch to a crucial client, Claire stood in front of the mirror, adjusting her blazer. She felt empowered, ready. Tom knocked gently on the doorframe, looking vibrant. "Absolutely," Claire answered, determination lighting her eyes. When they presented together, it felt electric. Their ideas danced in the air, drawing in the client like moths to a flame. By the end, the room erupted with applause, and Claire felt a wave of exhilaration wash over her. As the client signed the contract that day, Claire and Tom exchanged victorious grins. Claire exclaimed. Together, Tom replied, pride radiating from him. In the months that followed, their partnership flourished, and Claire's self-doubt faded into the background. She realized firing Tom had been a crucial moment in her own journey, one that had led her to confront her fears and grow stronger. One evening, Claire strolled through the city, her heart light with possibilities. As she passed that same office building, she glanced up at the name etched on the facade. Instead of feeling dread or jealousy this time, she felt gratitude. That name, once a symbol of her rival's ascent, had transformed. It represented growth, resilience, and the unexpected twists that life can take. Claire smiled, fortified by the knowledge that sometimes you must let go of control to create something extraordinary. With Tom by her side, they had turned fierce competition into a powerful alliance, proving that out of conflict, collaboration can bloom. She walked on, no longer burdened by her past decisions, but ready to face whatever future challenges lay ahead. Together with Tom, they would not only rise above but soar. The boardroom hummed with tension, the air thick with anticipation. Claire sat at the head of the table, papers strewn in front of her, but her focus was locked on Tom as he leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, a smirk plastered on his face. They both knew this moment was coming. It had been building for some time now, a slow boil that was about to erupt. Tom quipped, his tone dripping with sarcasm. I drive results. The team shifted uneasily, some glancing at each other, their expressions a mix of worry and surprise. This wasn't the first crack in their teamwork, but it felt different this time, more urgent. Tom, I am beyond tired of your antics, Claire replied, her voice steady. You disrespected our client last week. A little flair never hurt anyone. He shot back, shrugging as if he were discussing the weather. Calmly, Claire continued, your lack of professionalism is not only impacting our relationship with that client, but it's driving a wedge within our team. He scoffed, leaning forward. Oh please, and what would you know about being a leader? In that moment, something inside Claire shifted. It was as if a light had turned on, illuminating a truth she had long suppressed. This was the bold move she had been waiting for. Tom, I'm done playing these games. The words hit like a thunderclap, the room freezing in stunned silence. Employees exchanged wide-eyed glances, an electric tension sparking in the air. Tom spat, disbelief and rage twisting his features. You're firing me here? Yes, I am, and I won't take it back, Claire stated firmly. Tom stood up abruptly, knocking his chair back hard against the wall. He yelled as he stormed out, the weight of his anger heavy in every step. Claire sat there for a moment, stunned by her own boldness. Heart racing, she felt a surge of both fear and freedom. Was she going to regret this? Doubt crept in. Sarah, her assistant, whispered, concern dripping from her voice. I had no choice, Claire replied, but her voice felt shaky. The decision had felt right in the moment, but now the weight of it loomed large. Hours passed like slow molasses, and the office buzzed with whispers about what had just unfolded. How would her team react to the absence of Tom, their superstar salesman? Would they respect her decision, or would they question her leadership? Claire found it hard to focus that day. Each ring of her phone felt like a reminder of her impulsiveness. As the day faded into evening, she wrapped up her work and stepped onto the street. The sun dipped low, casting long shadows as she wandered aimlessly. She needed to clear her mind, to breathe outside of the office's suffocating walls. But just as she turned a corner, something caught her eye, an ultramodern office building with glossy glass windows. Her heart dropped as she approached. Tom's name. Just days after she fired him, he had already launched his own company. The reality of it struck her hard, swirling up feelings of envy, regret, and disbelief. How could this happen so quickly? Claire felt a knot tighten in her stomach. It was one thing to fire him, but now it felt like she had set free a beast that was quickly becoming a threat. She turned and walked away, the weight of her decision settling heavily on her shoulders. Weeks passed, and as Claire entered the office each day, the air felt different. Tom's name was everywhere. Magazine articles, social media buzz, and industry recognition poured in like a tidal wave. She found herself caught in a spiral of comparison, each success he posted tearing away at her confidence. Sarah asked more than once. Claire forced a smile, but inside she felt anything but okay. Each laugh, each smile Tom broadcasted seemed to taunt her, reminding her of the choice she had made. It all came to a head one night at a networking event. Claire walked into a crowded room filled with the who's who of the industry. Her heart raced, excitement mingling with anxiety. Then she spotted him, Tom, charismatic as ever, surrounded by admirers. Each laugh he shared was like a dagger twisting in her gut. She tried to engage in conversations, but her attention kept drifting back to him. The whispers of others echoed in her ears. Did you hear about Tom's new venture? Claire's pulse quickened. As the evening wore on, she couldn't shake the feeling of impending disaster, not just for herself, but for her own company. At one point, Tom's eyes met hers from across the room. He grinned, walked over, and leaned casually against the bar. Hey Claire, Tom, she replied flatly, feeling her defenses rise. He tilted his head, amusement flickering in his eyes. You know, I really think you'd do well if you joined my team. She clenched her jaw, the mix of anger and insecurity swirling inside her. Are you? Because it looks like you're struggling to keep up, he shot back, his smirk widening. Every fiber in Claire's being wanted to retort, but she bit her tongue, refusing to engage. The last thing she wanted was to give him the satisfaction of a reaction. The night dragged on, filled with awkward encounters and gut-wrenching realizations. Claire felt adrift, her confidence continued to shrink with each passing moment. Finally, she escaped into the night, the cool air hitting her like a splash of cold water. A few days later, as Claire scrolled through social media, something caught her eye. It was a post about Tom's new office grand opening. Her stomach twisted as she read through the comment sprays, admiration, envy from others in the community. It felt unbearable. Her fingers trembled as she set her phone down, thoughts racing. She wondered, frustration boiling. She had fired him, yes, but she had done it for good reason. Yet the reality of his meteoric rise felt like a slap in the face. Curiosity mixed with dread, and she found herself showing up at his office opening. As she walked inside, the atmosphere buzzed with excitement, the energy palpable. There he stood, Tom, flanked by his new team, glowing as the center of attention. Claire took a deep breath. She wanted to be proud of her own achievements without being overshadowed by his. But as she walked through the crowd, every interaction with Tom felt like a reminder of her own perceived failures. "Claire," Tom exclaimed as he caught sight of her. "Just paying my respects," she said, trying to sound composed. "Respects?" he asked, an eyebrow raised. "You should think about joining us." The word stung. "Thanks, but no thanks," she managed, biting her tongue. Throughout the evening, she drowned in conversations about Tom's company, listening to praises tossed his way. The more accolades he received, the more Claire's doubts festered. Was she missing out? Had she made a catastrophic error? Eventually, she found her way to the exit, feeling a wave of disappointment wash over her. The aftertaste of triumph turned bitter, and she wrestled with the implications of her decision. Days turned into weeks, and as summer slowly faded, Claire tried to refocus on her own business. Yet the thought of Tom continued to linger in her mind, a constant reminder of what she could have lost and what she had thrown away. Then one night her phone buzzed with a message. It was from Tom. "Hey Claire, would love to grab coffee." Her stomach twisted. Why would he want to meet? Just to gloat? She hesitated for a moment before deciding to respond, curiosity nagging at her. Sure, they agreed to meet the next week. The day came and Claire felt a mix of anticipation and dread as she stepped into the cafe. Tom was already there, sipping coffee, his demeanor relaxed. "Hey, great to see you," he said, genuine warmth in his voice. "Hi Tom," she replied, taking a seat across from him. As they chatted, the conversation flowed easily, devoid of the previous tension. They shared stories about their respective journeys since the day she had fired him. He opened up about struggles and triumphs, his vulnerability catching her off guard. "I realized losing my position put me on an unexpected path," he said, his eyes sincere. Claire listened, feeling the weight of his words resonating with her own experience. "I get it. It's been a learning curve for me too," she admitted, her voice softer. They spoke about challenges, the fear of failure, and the lessons learned through adversity. For the first time, Claire saw Tom not as a rival, but as someone who had fought for his place in the world, much like she had. As the conversation continued, something shifted. Claire felt an inkling of respect growing within her. "Maybe we could collaborate," she suggested tentatively, surprising even herself. Tom's eyes lit up. "I'd love that." Coffee cups were filled and emptied as they brainstormed ideas for potential projects. By the time they parted, Claire felt invigorated, the air between them charged with possibility. Over the next few weeks, they pursued their collaboration, embracing their strengths and learning to complement each other. The energy between them felt electric as ideas sparked and plans took shape. One late afternoon, as they prepared for a major presentation, Claire felt a shift in her own confidence. She stood in front of the mirror, adjusting her blazer and taking a deep breath. Tom walked in, a bright smile lighting up his face. "Absolutely," Claire replied. When the big day arrived and they stood before the audience, Claire felt the electricity between them. Their combined ideas flowed seamlessly, captivating the client sitting before them. They clicked, each feeding off the other's energy. As they finished, the room erupted into applause, a wave of excitement washing over them. Claire exclaimed later, unable to contain her joy. "Together," Tom emphasized, his pride evident. Weeks turned into months, and the collaboration cemented not only their partnership, but a bond of mutual respect and understanding. Claire no longer felt overshadowed or insecure. Instead, she felt energized and powerful, carving her own place alongside Tom. One sunny afternoon, Claire found herself walking through the city again. Approaching the familiar building where Tom's name gleamed in the sunlight, she felt a sense of peace wash over her. This wasn't just Tom's success anymore. It was a symbol of resilience, hard work, and the road they had traveled together. With a smile, Claire realized that their journey had transformed her how she viewed competition, collaboration, and herself. Sometimes you must take bold steps into the unknown to discover where your true strengths lie. As she walked on, she didn't feel just like Claire. She felt like a leader, ready to take on the world. And with Tom by her side, they were not merely colleagues. They were pioneers poised to reshape their industry together. The office was electric that morning, filled with the usual coffee-fueled chatter, but something was brewing that felt different, tantalizingly tense. Claire stood at her desk, scanning the busy floor, her heart racing. Today was the day she would confront Tom. Tom, her top salesman, was a double-edged sword. His charm brought in clients, but his arrogance caused rifts within the team. Today, she resolved that she could no longer tolerate it. Ignoring her racing heart, she pushed her chair back and strode toward the conference room, where Tom was currently regaling a few colleagues with yet another exaggerated story. He turned, flashing that trademark smile, the one that could win over anyone. "Sure, Claire, can't wait to see what they didn't like about my brilliance," he shot back, humor laced with just the right amount of sarcasm. "Tom, let's speak privately," she replied, keeping her tone even. She felt the undercurrent of tension building, felt the eyes of her colleagues trailing behind them as they exited the room. Once inside, Claire closed the door, the click reverberating through her chest. "I've been getting complaints about your behavior," she began, her heart thumping loudly. Tom leaned back against the table, arms crossed, dismissiveness radiating off him. "Really, you know how these meetings are. But you didn't show them anything except disrespect. You spoke over them, mocked their concerns." "This isn't just about you, it impacts the entire team," Claire said, her irritation bubbling to the surface. "Claire, come on, they need to understand who they're dealing with," he responded, his expression one of amusement. She took a deep breath, trying to collect herself. "This isn't about bravado, it's about professionalism." Tom laughed. Claire locked eyes with him, her resolve hardening. "I am firing you." The words spilled from her lips with the clarity of a bell ringing. Shock washed over Tom's face as if she had slapped him. "You can't be serious." "Yes, I can," Tom erupted in anger. "You'll regret this." Claire felt her stomach twist, but she stood her ground. He stormed out, his footsteps echoing in the hall like thunder. Claire could feel the weight of the world settling on her shoulders as colleagues peeked around doors, a mix of shock and uncertainty etched across their faces. She left the office that day feeling triumphant yet vulnerable, a war hero who suddenly felt very much alone. Gnawed at her, but she brushed it aside, focused on creating a stronger environment for her team. Days passed, and the void left by Tom felt both liberating and daunting. Claire pushed herself to lead with renewed energy, but doubts crept in. Did she really make the right choice? Then came the fated Friday afternoon when she decided to take a walk to clear her head. The sun hung low, casting a golden hue across the city skyline. As she strolled, her thoughts lingered on her firm's future and the growing uncertainty it brought. Suddenly, she turned a corner and collided with reality. There stood a new office building, sleek and modern, with the name Mitchell Enterprises prominently displayed in towering letters. Her heart sank. Tom Mitchell, he had launched his own company, days after she fired him. Claire felt the ground beneath her feet tremble as anger and shame roiled within her. She had given him the push he needed to truly soar. Moments later, she turned and fled, the wave of dread crashing over her like icy water. All her confidence, her bold decisions, had it all been in vain? Weeks rolled on, and every day felt like a tightrope walk. Tom's company began making headlines while her own firm struggled to maintain its footing. Social media was flooded with posts praising Tom's swift success. Every notification on her phone felt like a stab in the chest. Sarah, her assistant, asked one afternoon, sensing the storm that brewed in Claire's heart. "I'm fine," Claire snapped, frustration bubbling under the surface. But behind those words lay a tempest of doubt. Why was this eating away at her? Finally, it all came crashing down at a joint networking event. The atmosphere thrummed with excitement. Important figures mingled as if they were all part of an elite club. And standing smack in the center of it was Tom, wrapped in a cocoon of admirers. Claire's heart raced. She wanted to turn and flee, but something pulled her forward, the need to confront her fears overwhelming. But sending her eyes out to survey the crowd, she felt a sinking pit in her stomach. She had to face this. With every step closer, she felt like a spotlight was shining on her ugly insecurities. Tom saw her, and a smile stretched across his face. "Hey, Claire," exclaimed, a mix of cockiness and delight. "Tom," she replied, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. He asked, his cheekiness dancing in the air like a taunting ghost. She fought to keep her composure. "I've seen some headlines. Doing well," he boasted, clearly basking in the attention. "You should consider coming on board." Each word felt like a nail, and Claire clenched her fists at her sides to keep steady. "Who does he think he is? Thanks, but I'm doing just fine," she responded coldly. With that, Tom returned to his admirers, leaving Claire feeling hollow. The conversation had felt like a charade, and every laugh, every cheer, every clap felt like another wound peeling open. Later that night, wandering the empty streets, she replayed the conversations in her mind, the unease gnawing at her. Had she really made the right decision? Days turned into weeks, and Tom continued to gain traction, accolades pouring in like confetti. Claire felt the pressure weighing down on her, inching toward suffocation. She needed to make a change, but how? Then one fateful day, after a particularly trying meeting, Claire found herself staring blankly at her computer screen. The words blurred together until she felt like she was drowning, and just then her phone rang, a message from Tom. "Hey Claire, let's grab coffee sometime." She hesitated, anxiety flooding her system. Did she really want to meet him? But curiosity tugged at her. What did he want? Was it just to gloat or something more? After a restless night, she finally replied, "Sure, let's do it." They agreed to meet a few days later, and as Claire dressed that morning, a mix of dread and anticipation swirled inside her. The cafe was cozy, filled with the comforting scent of roasted coffee beans. As soon as she walked in, Tom waved from a corner table, looking relaxed and confident. "Hey," he said, effortlessly charming as usual. "Hi, Tom," she replied, taking a seat across from him. They started with small talk, but soon the conversation shifted towards more substantial matters. He asked, genuine interest shining in his eyes. Claire hesitated, feeling the air thick with vulnerability. "It's been challenging, to say the least." He finished for her, a hint of understanding in his voice. "I didn't just fire you," she said quietly. "I understand," he replied. "Honestly, it pushed me to take a leap I didn't know I could take." His words jolted Claire, and she studied him closely. Had she actually sparked something positive in Tom? They exchanged stories of the struggles they faced post-departure, the pressure, the loneliness, and the unexpected growth. With every shared experience, Claire felt barriers between them begin to dissolve. "Maybe we both needed this change more than we realized," Tom said. Claire found herself nodding, astonished by his honesty. As coffee cups emptied, the conversation flowed freely. They laughed, reminisced, and slowly built a bridge of mutual respect. With each moment shared, Claire felt lighter, her heart lifting. Before they parted ways, Tom paused. "I want to extend an invitation, Claire. What if we worked on something together?" The proposition hung in the air, and Claire felt a rush of excitement mixed with fear. Could they really collaborate after everything? "Okay," she replied, surprising herself. In the weeks that followed, their partnership blossomed. Ideas flourished in brainstorming sessions filled with laughter and creativity. With each meeting, Claire grew more confident, reclaiming her rightful place as a leader. Tom challenged and inspired her in ways she hadn't expected. He shared insights about his journey, and she found herself admiring his vulnerability. Finally, the day arrived for their big pitch, an opportunity to showcase their combined vision. Standing together outside the conference room, Claire felt a mixture of nerves and excitement. Tom asked, giving her a reassuring smile. "Let's do it," Claire replied, determination gleaming in her eyes. When they stepped into the conference room, the energy was palpable. They presented together, seamlessly weaving their thoughts into a captivating narrative that left the audience spellbound. As their closing remarks echoed in the air, the applause felt electric. Claire felt an overwhelming sense of triumph wash over her. They had done it together. Once outside, Tom turned to her, beaming. "We nailed that, Claire. Thanks, Tom." In that moment, Claire felt a shift. She had moved from fear to empowerment. She realized that sometimes the greatest victories come from joining forces rather than tearing each other apart. Weeks passed, and Claire found herself reflecting on that fateful moment when she had fired Tom. It had sparked not only his journey, but her own transformation as well. One sunny afternoon, Claire walked through the city, feeling a sense of peace she hadn't felt in months. Approaching that same imposing office building, she glanced up. This time, instead of feeling envious, she recognized it as a symbol of strength and resilience. It wasn't just Tom's success, it represented what they had built together, a space of growth rather than rivalry. With a smile, Claire turned and walked away, no longer burdened by the weight of doubt. She was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, knowing that she had the power to shape her destiny. And with Tom by her side, they would not only climb higher but redefine success together. Their story was just beginning, and together they would make waves in the industry. The conference room was bustling with energy, the hum of chatter drowning out the ticking clock on the wall. Claire stood at the front, her heart pounding, nerves dancing in her stomach. Today would be the day she finally confronted Tom. Tom was a top salesman, charismatic and charming, but there was a darkness beneath the surface. He was a double-edged sword, his cockiness often causing friction within the team. Claire could feel the tension in the air, a smoldering fire waiting to ignite. When Tom burst into the room, confidence radiated from him like light. He declared, earning a few chuckles from the team, but Claire was not in the mood for games today. She said, her voice calm but firm. The room fell silent and all eyes turned to them. "Sure thing," his casual demeanor made her blood boil. "It's about your behavior in client meetings," she stated, holding his gaze. "Come on, I thought we were supposed to impress the clients." He tossed his hands up dramatically, a wicked grin on his face. "This isn't just about you," Claire said, feeling frustration welling up inside her. "Your antics are damaging our reputation." The room crackled with tension, and Claire inhaled deeply. "Yes." A stunned silence enveloped the room, and Tom's expression shifted from surprise to anger. "In front of everyone?" "Yes, if you won't take this seriously, then I have to take action," Claire said, her voice steady. Tom's face turned red and his voice cracked. "You're making a mistake." She watched him storm out of the room, his footsteps echoing like thunder. The door slammed behind him, and the weight of the moment settled on Claire's shoulders. Had she really done that? "Wow," Sarah, her assistant, whispered as the room began to murmur. "I had to do it," Claire replied, though doubt filled her mind. Had she made a colossal mistake? As time crawled by, Claire tried to shake off the uncertainty. She dismissed the whispers and continued her day, but each passing hour felt like a swing of a pendulum, each tick a reminder of her bold declaration. Once the workday ended, Claire found herself wandering the streets, needing to escape the remnants of her decision. The late afternoon sun hung like a golden orb in the sky, painting her surroundings in warm hues, but the beauty was lost on her. She felt like a storm cloud floating through a perfect day. Turning a corner, she stumbled upon a brand new building that took her breath away. As she approached, her heart sank. Tom's name, just days after she had fired him, he had already launched his own venture. It felt like salt in the wound, and the reality twisted her stomach. How could he rebound so quickly? Claire's thoughts spiraled as she turned on her heel, the weight of her decision crushing down on her. She had set free a powerful competitor, one who could now take everything from her. The following weeks became excruciating. Tom's company gained momentum fast. Headlines celebrated his success while Claire tried to hold her team together amid rising tensions and dwindling morale. Each notification on her phone felt like a knife in her heart. Sarah pressed one afternoon, noticing Claire's distracted demeanor. Her brows knotted with worry. "I'm fine," Claire snapped more harshly than she intended, but the anger simmering just beneath the surface made it hard to stay calm. Weeks turned to gloom as Claire's unease grew. Every client meeting felt like a challenge she wasn't prepared for, and Tom's shadow loomed larger every day. The weight of regret pressed down as fame floated on Tom's wings. Then came the networking event, a chance to face the industry's elite. Claire took a deep breath, adjusting her blazer, trying to convey the confident leader hidden behind the walls of her uncertainty. As she stepped into the venue, the air hummed with excitement, but her spirit wavered as she spotted Tom effortlessly working the room, surrounded by admirers. Every laugh he shared felt like a jab, a reminder of her own insecurities. She tried to engage in conversations, but found her mind drifting back to him, the steady pit in her stomach growing deeper. "Ladies and gentlemen," a voice boomed and the crowd erupted in applause as Tom stepped forward, his confident smile bright. Burdened by shame, Claire felt like a ghost in her own skin. She turned towards the bar, grateful for the distraction, when suddenly she felt a presence beside her. Tom's voice felt both familiar and foreign, dripping with a mix of arrogance and charm. "Tom," she replied, forcing her mouth into a tight smile. He grinned wider. What a surprise. "Busy enough," she said, her voice cooler than she intended. "Sure," he asked, feigning interest while his smirk revealed his true intent. His words dripped with condescension, each syllable igniting her anger. "We're managing, how about you?" "Absolutely." Every word felt like a challenge, and Claire struggled to remain composed. "Oh, I wouldn't dream of it," he replied, his tone dripping with sarcasm. The wall between them felt insurmountable, but Claire turned away, her fists clenched. As she walked away, the weight of inadequacy threatened to pull her down, a reminder of her past decisions burning in her chest. It was relentless, a gnawing doubt that haunted her long after the event ended. Days turned into weeks. Tom continued to dominate the headlines while Claire found herself increasingly isolated, battling the noise in her mind as the doubt enveloped her like a fog. One evening, she found herself alone in her office, the flickering light casting eerie shadows. The emptiness surrounded her, echoing her own sense of failure. Just then, her phone buzzed with a notification, a message from Tom. "Hey Claire, I was thinking it might be time we caught up over coffee." Claire's heart raced. Was he serious? Curiosity warred with hostility. Did he want to gloat? A part of her wanted to ignore it, but another part longed to find out what game he might be playing. After a night filled with restless thoughts, she finally typed a reply. "Sure, I'm game." They agreed to meet the next week. As the day approached, Claire felt nervous energy crackling through her. Turning the pages of her planner, she found herself lost in doubts. What would she say? How could she confront him again after everything? On the day of their meeting, Claire entered the cafe, the smell of freshly brewed coffee wrapping around her like a familiar embrace. Tom was already there, his presence filling the room, his casual demeanor radiating confidence. "Hey," he exclaimed, waving her over. "Hi, Tom," she replied, taking a seat across from him. The initial awkwardness faded as they exchanged pleasantries. As they settled into the conversation, she noticed a different quality to him, less arrogance, more transparency. He asked, his tone more interested than dismissive. "Been challenging, honestly," Claire admitted, nervous energy bubbling up as she began to open up. He nodded, leaning in. "I get that." Surprising herself, Claire continued, "It's hard not to feel like I've thrown everything away. Watching you succeed while I struggle has been. I understand, but for me it's been a huge leap of faith." His honesty jolted Claire, and for a moment she allowed the weight of their rivalry to dissipate. Tom smiled, his eyes sparkling with sincerity. "Absolutely." As they engaged in an open dialogue, Claire felt barriers dropping, walls crumbling. They began sharing insights, laughter echoing through the cafe as they explored their shared journeys. "Maybe we could work together on something," Tom suggested playfully at one point. Claire's heart raced at the thought. Could they really put their differences aside and create something together? Over the next few weeks, Claire found herself invigorated. They brainstormed ideas filled with passion, intertwining their visions, rediscovering synergy in the space they once fought over. As their collaboration deepened, Tom's presence transformed from a source of anxiety to one of inspiration, reshaping Claire's perspective. She could feel her confidence returning, a flicker igniting inside her. Then one day, weeks down the line, they prepared for a major presentation that meant everything. They stood in front of the conference room, Claire's heart raced with anticipation and nervous energy. Tom looked over at her, offering a reassuring nod. Absolutely, Claire breathed, feeling empowered for the first time in ages. When the moment came, they dazzled the audience with their presentation, drawing on each other's strengths and igniting sparks of creativity. As the applause erupted, she felt a rush of exhilaration. Chills ran down her spine. Tom had done it again. Would she ever escape his shadow? She turned to Tom, an urgency burning in her chest. "Tom," she said, struggling to find the right words. He met her gaze, a hint of understanding reflected in his eyes. "It means we keep pushing, keep climbing together." Claire's heart raced, but uncertainty loomed just as heavily. What if their partnership fell short? What if Tom continued to shine while she stood in the darkness? That night, she lay awake, replaying the day's events, realization dawning that this was only the beginning of their journey. Perhaps joining forces was a risk worth taking. As the city outside dimmed into silence, Claire couldn't shake the feeling that an enormous turning point lay ahead, one that would upend their lives in ways neither of them could foresee. Determined and restless, she stood on the precipice of a decision, knowing she was about to dive into something monumental. Tomorrow would be the day they either soared together or crashed spectacularly. The choice was hers, and she felt the gravity of the moment wrapping around her like a cloak. And with that, the future swung wide open, uncertain, daring, and full of possibilities.